compared to hers. Why do you think this is called the Song of Songs? Now keep that in mind of Holy of Holies or King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That's a uniquely Hebraic way of expressing things. So this is the song. This is the Song of Songs. Why do you think it's called that? What makes this the greatest song? If you believe in inspiration, this is God's song. This is God's state. This is God's love song. And that makes it very special. And again, metaphorically and all of those kinds of things. And I want you to understand, and we're seeing all forms of love in here. We're seeing agape, we're seeing phileo, we're seeing eros, we're seeing storge, we're seeing all the variations. And God invented, He created all of those. I think sometimes we don't want to admit that God is the God of eros. But He gave us that. He gave us friendship love. He gave us agape, the highest level of love, because it's totally selfless. He gave us erotic love. He gave us familial love. He created those things. And being made in His image, those are a reflection of Him. Now again, I want to make the statement, and I'm going to keep doing this, that because especially eros has been so perverted throughout history and culture, and because we've been impacted directly and indirectly by that, we see it associated with shame. And what I want you to see in this is pure, this is the garden. This is one man, one woman, and they're destined to be together. And so there are no boundaries, there are no games, or any of those kinds of things. There's no perversions of this. This is pure as God intended it to be, using the greatest metaphor we have to understand God's desire for intimacy with us. Now, guys, sometimes the word intimacy gets associated with sex, and they can be relative, certainly. But intimacy is not just about sexuality. It's about indwelling. It's about two becoming one. It's about the merger of two entities into one that is greater than the sum of its parts. And it comes from all of those different perspectives. So as we go through here, there's some places I'm going to point out that certain authors have, in my opinion, eroticized them. And needlessly so. Because it's, again, we live in a fallen world, and sometimes we look at things through our fallen eyes rather than our godly eyes, our pure. So I want to keep reiterating as we go through this, stripping away all of what man does to these notions. I want us to see them from God's pure perspective. Remember, and I say this without any embarrassment, but I want you to remember that on our wedding night, Charlotte and I, we were laying there about to go to sleep, and she commented to me that we've come together, God is in the room, and it's beautiful. There's nothing to be ashamed of in His presence when you do it right. Nothing to be ashamed of when you've lived the way that He wants you to live. He blessed it because He created it. And it's beautiful to Him, unless perverted. And there's nothing more evil than good that's been perverted. Okay. And so as we're talking about this relationship, and as we're talking about her pursuing Him even, when God said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cling to his wife, shall cleave to her, he shall grab her and hold her and all that, if a woman is never pursued by a man, she will never have him. If she pursues him and is able to gain him, she'll never have him. He's got to pursue her. He's got to see that she's the completer in my life, that helper suitable, help me, King James. He's got to come to that understanding and pursue her, or she'll never have him. And by the way, he will never respect her. He will never truly love her until he puts her on that pedestal. Now, here's the thing, as we all know, men are dense. When it comes to relationships, when it comes to understanding that, and in therapy, I see this so much about she's giving her hints, and they're all just going right over his head. You know, men are such concrete thinkers that you have to just kind of state it straightforward. But that robs her of her power. That robs her of her dignity and all of those kinds of things. I also mentioned to you that the groom's cake in our wedding had a figure with top hat and tails running, and behind him was a woman and wife that had him by the coattails. Now, Charlotte came up with that because she told her roommates after our first date, and they asked her, how'd it go? I'm going to end up married to him. So she had sights way beyond mine. And later when she shared that, much later, when she shared that with me, already married, I thought, well, you sure had a high perspective of yourself. No, she had a sense of destiny, all that kind of stuff, and I was just way out, who knows where. And so that's the same thing with her. She's going to pursue him, but she's not the ultimate pursuer. Cheap Trick had a song years ago, and the title of it is, I Want You to Want Me. And that's what God is done through all Scripture. He's made it very clear he wants us. He's made the first move. He gave the law. He sent his son. He's done all the first things. But he doesn't want to enslave us. He wants us to want him back. And this is the story of her wanting him desperately. And as we talked about last week, you don't see this very often in people's responses to God. Today you see many people pursue God for what they can get from him. And whether it's salvation, whether it's security, etc. But you don't find that head over heels in love with Christ. All right. Look at verse 5. Again, I want you to think beauty, and I want you to think the metaphor. What is the message behind the message? When we literalize metaphors, we lose their meaning, their significance. Verse 5, dark am I, yet lovely, daughters of Jerusalem. Dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I'm dark, because I am darkened by the sun. My mother's sons were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards. My own vineyard I had to neglect. Tell me, whom I love, where you gaze your flock, where you graze your flock, and where you rest your sheep at midday. Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your friends? All right. She is not nobility. She does not have the pale skin and valor of someone who has been kept apart. Here is a woman that has a beauty, but she is scarred. In this case, she says that I've been darkened by the sun. And she says, I'm as dark as the tents of Kedar, which is interesting because these are Ishmaelite. Kedar is Arab. It's not Israelite. But she says, I'm as dark as their tents are. Now, what they would do is make tents, and then they would saturate them with oils to make them windproof and waterproof, and then those oils would darken. And so the tents would be dark. And so she's saying that's what I look like. And, and the use of metaphors to describe things that we talked about last week. Don't stare at me because I'm dark, because I'm darkened by the sun. Okay? Ideas about what is it that God is saying here by inspiration. What's the point of this? This is almost directly out of the chute. She's saying, I've had it hard. Thoughts?
My ways and my thoughts are so far above your thoughts that you may not get the meaning. I paraphrase pretty poorly there.
Yes. It's a challenge. And I think, like the layers of an onion, you can come away with one thing that is partially true and then come away with another thing that's partially true. What's she saying about herself? She's desiring the king.
She's not worthy to have the king's love. She's not worthy.
Okay. The notion of a prince, the notion of someday my prince will come, the notion of the stories of a female child, of the prince coming, royalty being taken. How many different stories do we have of that? That the prince and the pauper, or, it's just so. In fact, I've noticed on Hallmark movies how recurrent the theme of nobility, especially English nobility, and then the American young girl who goes over there sometimes as a nanny. It's a very recurrent theme in adult female fantasy of someone of an ability reaching down to someone who is not deserving, etc. And it's kind of a it's kind of a reaffirmation of true love, because why would you reach across? And that's part of the plot, is you can't marry her. She's nobody. You've got the kingdom to think of. You've got allegiances to think of and all of that. Yes, but I love her, and that's the point, is reaching across all of those boundaries. And some of those boundaries go back centuries. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And part of the plot is his rebellion against all of that. And even to the point of, I will leave the throne for her. Is that not? Do you not then have proof of love, which you don't have if you're marrying somebody that you're supposed to marry? So she's us. So what does it say? We're not worthy. Solomon's love, we're not worthy of God's love. I'm not going to ask you a show of hands. For a king that had 1,000 wives and concubines, what do you think your chances are of being number one? High? Maybe I will ask for a show. No, I'm kidding. Do I? Slim to none. And that is not to denigrate anybody here. That's just, these are the elite of the elite. And he had his choice from the whole world, okay? And she's desiring for him to look at her and to consider her above those 1,000. More like 150 at this time. We'll get to that later on. Why should he? Verse 5, I'm dark yet lovely. I'm scarred by the sun, but have beauty. What's the metaphor? Made in the image of God, in bondage to sin. Dark. Darkness. Darkness, all that. It's always been associated with sin. When God looks at me, what does he see? She tells you, dark am I yet lovely. It's hard for us to imagine that God would love us. It's difficult for us to accept that God would love us because we know us. But we have never seen ourselves as God sees us. Made in his image, in bondage to sin that needs to be rescued. And he will go to whatever extent and pay whatever price to rescue you. You see your darkness. That's why she says, don't look at me because I'm dark. That's what people see. That's what you see when you look in the mirror. You see your darkness. You see your insecurities. You see you the way that you think everybody in the world sees you. You see your flaws. And those flaws become your definition in your mind. And God doesn't see that because he made you in his image. And you have no flaws if you're made in his image. Yet sold into bondage to sin, but that can be corrected. That's not a matter of you're now have become evil. It is a matter of you have turned to the wrong place for love. And I am going to love you out of that. That's her desire for a relationship with Solomon, and that's Solomon's desire for a relationship with her. But she's got to get his attention. God has reached out, but he's going to play a passive role, seemingly passive role, because using the metaphor of an invitation song, we're the ones that have to step out in the aisle. We're the ones that have to go forward. We're the ones that have to make the confession. We're the ones that have to be baptized. But that's all. We initiate that, and we may initiate that as a result of a gospel sermon or a gospel meeting or something like that, but we didn't initiate it at all. God has. God presented the gospel message. We just responded to it. But it seems like we're the initiators because we have to do something, and that whole process kind of starts with us. But it doesn't. It already started with God. There's nothing to respond to if he hasn't presented his love first. How did he present his love? His son sacrificed. How did Abraham present his love? His son sacrificed. Laying it all on the line for you. Okay. Do not stare at me because I'm dark, verse 6, because I'm darkened by the sun. Why darkness and sun is a metaphor? Who was the greatest of Egyptian gods? I think this is a reference to bondage, ultimate bondage. I think this is going back to the history of Israel. My opinion. A lot of different metaphors could be used, but my mother's sons were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards. My own vineyard, I had to neglect. She's got value. She's got a certain amount of wealth because they're in the vineyard business, apparently, because it's vineyards, not a family vineyard. She has her own vineyard. She has to neglect, take care of theirs. What's she saying? I'm abused. And I'm scarred because of the abuse. Don't look at me because I'm dark. Don't see my darkness. See me. I've been abused by my family. No description of a father, so her brothers can mistreat her. They are the heirs in absence of a father, and they abuse her. They force her servitude. Who's our family? Who are our brothers? Our culture? Humanity? It's servitude. It is everyone that influenced you into evil. It's everyone that taught you how to do sin. It's every voice that suggested that you ought to sin. Voices that you listened to. Who ultimately is behind this? Satan. Satan has turned the family of man against itself. Satan has taught humans to abuse humans. The world is horribly fallen. And you're not even safe among those that you should be safest with. Tell me, you whom I love, verse 7, where you graze your flock, and where you rest your sheep at midday. Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your friends? What's she asking of him? What's she asking him? What's she looking for? How do I get to you? How do I get next to you so that I then can win your heart? How do I present myself to you? Do I need to do it as a veiled also ran, as a veiled come along, as a veiled sitting on the outskirts because I have to protect myself, I have to veil myself, which is distance. It's a covering, it's a wall. How do I get to you? And how do I get to you as I really am? I want intimacy with you. Don't interpret that as sex. Interpret that as including sex. I want intimacy. I want our two souls to mesh. And then the rest of it will take care of itself. The meshing of everything else will take care of itself once our souls are together. How do I do that? How do I get to you? How do I show you who I am? What's the metaphor for us? What's the challenge to a human being? God wants you. You want God. What's the challenge? How do I get to you? Another way to phrase that is, what must I do to be saved? What must I do to be united with you? What must I do for our two souls to become one? What ultimately is the answer for that? Romans 6. If we have died with him, we have been united with him. It's as intimate as you can get, united with him. Where two become one. How do I, and guys, it's as old as Pentecost. Men and brethren, what shall we do? And it's the most important question because the wrong answer is going to really lead to the wrong conclusion, the wrong outcome. How do I get to you? Tell me where. Now, here's the thing, guys. Solomon was not a shepherd. David was, but Solomon wasn't. It's a beautiful metaphor of taking care of sheep. And sheep are central metaphor to not just Israel, but today. But it's a beautiful metaphor. But she's saying, metaphorically, tell me where you take your sheep. Where are they going to be? No doubt Solomon had herds, but he had people who took care of them. He was raised in nobility. He wasn't raised as a shepherd boy like his father. And so the metaphor is beautiful. How do I come to where you are? And I want us to look at his answer, because his answer is going to appear to be coy. Should I be like a veiled woman, I cannot present myself to you. I have to sit on the outskirts covered and hope that you notice me. Is that what I have to do? How am I going to get next to you that way? How are we going to be together if you can't even see me, whatever? The issue is, he can see her. He's already seen her. See, our frustration or anxiety, am I really saved? What must I do to be saved? And I remember many years ago, having a Baptist friend who was saying to me, one of the things that you have that I don't have, because of our difference in our theologies, you can look back to a point and say, that's when I was saved. And you have things that you did, things that were associated, that you went through, actions that took you from being unsaved in your theology to being saved. And you could always look back on that and say, on the day I was baptized for remission of my sins, that's when I was saved. It was saying, I can't do that because I've asked Jesus into my heart over and over and over and over and over. And every time there's a sinner's prayer, I re-speak the sinner's prayer. And there's a certain insecurity in not being able to say, point action, that's the point in which I was saved. Because it tends to be a redundant thing. And I think there's a powerful point in that, of the security of knowing I'm his and he's mine. And he sees me. He's going to interact with her. He's going to answer her question because he's already seen her. And the insecurity of my darkness and all of this kind of stuff sometimes makes it very difficult for me to be open with God, to not come to God without a veil. And the veil is pretending to be something I'm not, or hoping he doesn't see what I am, or all of that. And she said, don't look at me because I'm dark. Look at me because I'm lovely. Is that arrogant? No, that's a response to what he has. I made you in my image. You have all of the beauty that makes up God. You're lovely. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're all of, because you're me, made in my image. And all the things that you have, including all of this love and intimacy, comes as a gift because that's who I am. Okay. And so her frustration, how do I get to you? It's not hard. It's not hard. So look at verse 8. Now we're going to have the friends, this kind of Greek chorus. If you do not know, most beautiful of women, follow the tracks of the sheep and graze your young goats by the tents of the shepherds. Follow where you see him going. This doesn't take detective work. Look and see where the hoof marks are coming out of his fold and follow them. And take your goats with you. And pitch your tent close to his tents. So, you go. Why is there a requirement? You've got to chase him down. You've got to bring your goats. You've got to find where his tent is. Why does she need to do these things? Now remember, she's in pursuit. And what she doesn't understand at this point, she's in pursuit as a response to his pursuit. He's already initiated all of this. Why does she need to do this?
Could it be that God wants us to want him just as much as we want him to want us?
Yes. Why should a man pull up in front of the house, get out of the car, go to the front door and knock on it, and ask for his beloved, rather than sit out there and honk? Respect. Why should he open her door? Well, he shouldn't anymore because chivalry's dead, but I want to suggest he really needs a comeback. Because people need to see how valued they are. People need to see, and it's all the old stuff of laying your coat down over the mud so she doesn't walk in. You know, it's walking on the outside on the sidewalk versus the inside. So you're the one that the water gets splashed on, or anything that happens, it's going to happen to you instead of her. It's showing love. Now, what she needs to do is show you're really interested. The obvious answer is, hear, believe, repent, confess, be baptized. You've got to do something. Does that earn his love? No. It shows yours. It shows yours. Brothers and sisters, if God had said, in order to be saved, you need to go out into the middle of a baseball diamond and put pancake dough in your ear. And you say, well, that didn't make any sense to me. Yeah, well, will you do it? If your beloved says, to demonstrate your love for me, guys, we would have classes how to find baseball diamonds. We would have classes on how to make pancake dough, wouldn't we? And the best way is to get it in your ear. We would be teaching people how to show their love in order to be saved. And the whole point of it is, it doesn't make sense. Will you do it? Will you show your love? You've expressed it. Will you show it? Words are cheap. Back it up. Will you show your love for me in response to my love for you? She doesn't know he loves her at this point. That's the gospel message. We don't know God loves us. We fear that he is very angry with us when we first come to him. Do you remember we come to God in tremendous humility? We come to him sometimes in depression. We come to him with hat in hands. It's called repentance. I am undone. I am pierced to the heart. I am unlovable. Oh, no, you're not. You're made in my image. We got to get rid of this nature that you've taken on. But I can help you with that. And then you can be restored to who I made you to be. We can be restored as we were in the garden, and everything will be pure and right. Yeah, but what are the memories of what? Hush. That's all gone. We are back to the garden, you and me. It's beautiful, it's pure, it's intimate, it's deep, and it's growing. That's the relationship God desires that I want you to want me, but not just as a Savior. Not just as he who will rule the world. Is that true? Absolutely. But not just as that. I want you to want me because I am lovely, and I am beautiful, and I am loving, and I desire you. A relationship on a level that we rarely talk about. Because we talk about trust and obey. We talk about submission. We talk about obedience. And we talk about service. And we talk about ministry. And we talk about God is Lord of Lords. And all of that is absolutely true. But it is totally incomplete. Hence the Song of Songs. Verse 9, I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariot horses. You saying I'm a horse? Your cheeks are beautiful with earrings, your neck with strings of jewels. We will make you earrings of gold studded with silver. The image presented in Revelation of Jesus coming back with his bride, adorned in white that is so beautiful it glows. How does her hair look? How does her dress look? How does her makeup look? How do the necklaces and the earrings and the rings and all of the accoutrements that do not give her beauty, they reflect her beauty. They enhance her beauty and her value. It is an incredibly beautiful image. Guys, Pennington, Arkansas, when they opened those two doors and it was Charlotte in that dress, and my heart just, and I'd seen her so many times, but I hadn't seen her like that. And the beauty of it, she was being presented to me. Now, I was escorted down by my mom and dad. She was escorted down by her mom and dad. And so we were up at the front, the six of us. And my dad made a charge to Charlotte and a charge to me. Her dad made a charge to me and then a charge to Charlotte about and then the four of them left, and it was the two of us. It was a beautiful metaphor of we were both given away. We were both given to each other. But that day, when the Lord comes again and you are presented to him in all your glory, and he stands before you and beside you in all his glory. Guys, that's what we live for. That final presentation, that consummation of this love affair that we have with Christ and he has with us. That's what this book is about. And it's unabashedly talking about the beauty, the physical beauty, the erotic beauty of a perfect relationship between a man and a woman. God-given, God-designed, beautiful in the eyes of God, if not perverted by sin and darkness. What an amazing message. What an amazing song of songs about how God loves us and how he wishes and hopes that we will love him in return. And wanting to have his fragrance in a sachet hanging on a necklace so that at night when we lay down, there between our breasts, we can smell his fragrance. That everything about him we want around us all the time. We doodle his name because his name is above all. And we doodle his name in our notebook in junior high. We take his shirt home so that when we're not with him, we can smell his aroma. And it just keeps us alive. It's what we live for. That's the relationship God desires with us. Now the question is, and the question will continue to be as we continue this study, is that the relationship you have with Him? Is that the relationship that you seek with Him? Or is your perspective, I was baptized for the remission of sins, and now God says, all right, sit down and don't do anything wrong until I come back. Stay good, and then I will come save you. Or is it we walk and talk as good friends should and do? I think the reason we have avoided this book is because of the enemy, not because of the book. It's because he's afraid of us seeing this unabashed love for God and an unabashed love in return. Because if we had that, oh my goodness, we would overcome the world with such passion. Let me tell you of him who loves me so much, and whom I love so much. Let's take a break, get ready for our assembly.